everybody, and welcome to the first ever episode of On the Flank. I am one of your hosts, John George, alongside Joe Kirkpatrick. Say hello, Joe.
Hey everybody.
And this is the first ever episode of On the Flank. It's a pro Overwatch podcast. We basically dive into the pro Overwatch scene, competitive Overwatch, Overwatch in general, anything Overwatch, and we analyze stuff. And when it comes to analysis, we are on the flank. Makes no sense. Sounds really cool. All right. So this is the first podcast episode ever. So introductions are in order. If you'd like to start first, Joe, you can go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, so I am Joe Kirkpatrick, student involved in the esports organizations and stuff at Butler University. I run all their social medias and stuff. But I first got involved with Overwatch not too long ago. It was like the end of the Halloween event last year in 2017, which was actually a really we were talking about this earlier. It's actually a really nice time to sort of jump into this because it was right before BlizzCon of the Overwatch World Cup last year,
Oh, yeah.
and right before the first preseason for the Overwatch League. So, I sort of got into it right away. But I've been climbing through the ranks trying to figure out what's going on. But
Yeah,
uh,
that was definitely a great time. Right when Overwatch esports hit its stride, if you ask me. Added all those observer options, the in-game jerseys, the replays, all that stuff. So you started at the right time for sure. But yeah, as far as my Overwatch history goes, I've been playing since I actually played the beta up for a little bit. One of my friends had the beta, so I used his account for a little bit. But I've been interested in Overwatch since then. I've been into Overwatch esports since then as well. I remember the original Luminosity Gaming with Seagull on it, with Gods on it. They eventually went to NRG. I was super pumped when Shaq tweeted about them back in the old days of Overwatch esports. I knew something big was coming, and then we had the Overwatch World Cup, and the Overwatch League eventually came. I remember being so hyped when they first announced the Overwatch League at that BlizzCon. I think it was like a year before the first preseason, pretty much, they announced it. And I was just so hyped for some more announcements because I love the city-based concept and all that stuff. But yeah, I've been into Overwatch esports, but esports in general too. I was a student at Butler University, and I was one of the founders of that Butler Esports Club, alongside Joe, who was super helpful, and he's probably one of, in my opinion, one of the best members of the club. He's super helpful with the social media and just getting everything organized. So, thank you, Joe, for that.
no problem.
Yeah. So now that introductions are done, let's jump right into it. I know this was a while ago at this point. Um, I don't know, maybe 9-10 days ago at this point, but we have to talk about it. Contenders, Korean contenders, Kungdu Panthera versus Runaway, went to 8 maps. Probably it's being considered one of the best Overwatch matches of all time. Runaway ends up winning their first Korean championship ever. They're one of the OG Korean teams. This was one hell of a game. I couldn't. I'm here. We're both here at Eastern time, so I was up at 5 a.m. I could not fall asleep while watching this match. What you think of it, Jeff?
Yeah, I can. I didn't watch it live, but yeah, I came back and watched some of the maps after. Yeah, it was just crazy because but at one point, County Pit there was up like 3-1, I think, after 4 maps.
Yep.
And then Runaway came back, took it all back to 8. But yeah, it was a really cool series. Like especially even just going back. Just if you were gonna go back, just go watch Ilios. This is their last map they played. Just really excellent round on well, and Lighthouse. Ruins was
Yeah,
pretty well
Ruins
decided by
was.
then, but yeah, just excellent rounds really the whole way.
Yeah, that was the map two. Whatever, I can't remember which map that was, but the second map was the one where Runaway came back. It was down 99-0 and then came back.
I
And
think that was well, yeah.
yeah, it was that was such an insane map on Ilios right there. I think it just watch Ilios if you can. But that whole series was awesome. Started Runaway won the first map, and then Kongdu took the next three alongside a tie, and then Runaway came back and took the next two, causing an eighth map, which was it was crazy to see. And I, as an original fan of Overwatch esports, I remember watching Runaway when they're first like that Orgless team that just came out of nowhere in Korea, and faced Lunatic High in those season 2 Apex finals, and I shed a tear watching them actually win something. And I remember one of the things I want to bring up. We're from America, obviously. Esports is a lot different in Korea. Here in America, when you see crowds, it's male dominant, mostly males. In Korea, it's almost all females. And instead of like if Runaway had won here in America, everyone would be cheering, like very hyped. But when they won in Korea, all the girls in the audience were crying, and it was crazy to watch. I was like, oh my god, this is so sad. I was like, wow, everyone's so happy for them. What what do you think about the esports fandom over in Korea, Joe?
Hey, it's interesting to watch. I mean, it's just the stuff. It's a different culture, you know. Trying to look at the way, like even when here now in the World Cup, which we're going to talk about here in a second, just to watch the crowd also at this Incheon group stage, it's the same thing. It's really interesting to yeah, to make those kinds of comparisons like you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it made Runaways win even better to see everyone just crying tears of joy in the audience. But yeah, that was great. You brought up World Cup. Great transition. Let's transition right into it. World Cup, South Korea. This happened this past weekend. The first group stage of the World Cup this year. They're doing 24 teams this year, so 6 teams per group. This time around, this one was in South Korea, of course. It included 6 teams: Russia, Japan, Japanese Taipei, Finland,
Chinese Taipei,
Chinese Taipei. What did I say?
Japanese.
Wow.
China would probably be offended.
Yeah, yeah. Japan might take over Taiwan. No surprises there. But Finland, Korea, South Korea, and Hong Kong. I'll read off the standings real quick, then we can get into analysis. Of course, South Korea got first, went going 5-0. Finland went 4-1. Their only loss to South Korea. Russia 3-2. Then Japan 2-3. Chinese Taipei 1-4, and Hong Kong 0-5, dropping every single map that they played. All right, so I'm personally not surprised. Any surprises for you, Joe?
Not really. No, I think probably the most uncertain thing in this particular group stage was who would take second,
Yeah.
right, between Finland and Russia. Same thing. If you had to go back and watch a series from this group stage, it would probably either be that one or the one that ended up being for first place between South Korea and Finland.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really nice levels of competition there on the top that stratified itself out pretty nicely as we went through the weekend.
Yeah. And watching Finland, South Korea made me think South Korea is definitely beatable, because I honestly don't think Finland is like one of the best competitors against South Korea. So I think these other teams have a good chance against South Korea. But Russia Finland was definitely a great matchup. I honestly didn't expect Russia to compete as much as they ended up doing. They only have 2 Overwatch League players, Shadowburn and Mistakes, in their starting lineup. So I didn't expect the rest of their team to do that well. They're on an EU contenders team, but I think they performed pretty well actually. And Shadowburn and Mistakes did not have to carry them, and they ended up playing a very close game against Finland. So that was also a really exciting match. But I did
Yeah.
expect Finland to make it over Russia. So any anybody on not any non Overwatch League players that impressed you this weekend?
Yeah, so I guess I'd have to say First of all, I do at least want to give a mention to Depp off of Japan, Team
Yeah,
Japan. Really good Widowmaker, really good hit scan player. Uh, attempted to carry his team sometime. It worked on some maps, but usually
yeah,
the opponents were able to shut him down pretty quickly. So, it was notable certainly for his team, and then the rest would definitely be just the tanks and tank line supports from Team Russia. Again, I forget which team you said they were from, but they all play on the same Contenders EU team,
yep,
um, and yeah, really good synergy, really working to enable Shadowrun mistakes. As they were able to pop off, which was nice with uh, Chow and Tonic and Ing and Main.
yeah.
Really cool to watch.
I agree. I agree with those exact same players. Actually, no one on Chinese Taipei or Hong Kong impressed me too much. But hopefully, Overwatch players in the Chinese scene can step up. You know, maybe we'll see it when we get the mainland China team up in here. But that's in a couple weeks, of course, in the Thailand group. But we'll see. We the Shanghai Dragons, of course, notorious for their 0-40 season. Um, so we're not. The Chinese players aren't looking too good, but besides that, besides the actual play, we can talk about some new things they added, of course, with this patch. Rialto. This is one of the first competitions we saw, the map Rialto, and it was played very often. 12 out of 15 escort maps.
Yeah, and the way the map selection worked was every series started with a preset control map out of the four that are available, but then from there on they played the rest of the map types, but it was the choice of the loser from the map previous, which meant that all of there's like 26 maps or something ridiculous, no, like 16 or 18 maps
Yeah,
that were in play. Yeah, which makes it really notable that we saw Rialto that much. I think we had Dorado twice, both times Russia picked it, and Gibraltar once, which I think Finland played. Um, anyway, but yeah, it's just interesting. One of the suggestions that the casters and talent had, maybe to try to explain that, was just because it was so new, right? That there hadn't been any exposure for these Overwatch League players to Rialto, and so especially again because the loser picks the map, they might have thought that, and it's probably true, that Rialto would provide a little bit more of a leveled playing field almost between some of these World Cup teams. Trying to mess around with this new meta, which we can also talk about, but also on this relatively newer map.
yeah. South Korea and Finland, full Overwatch League roster, or at least starting rosters, and Overwatch League players never got to play Rialto in competitive play. Contenders players, they have. Um, but overall, I agree with what the casters were saying. These people are just trying to throw the Overwatch League players off. But I also really enjoy playing on Rialto. When Rialto first came out, I feel like maybe the first 2 months, I seriously never got Rialto, like in competitive play. I just never played on it. But now I've played on it about 4 or 5 times, but I really enjoy playing on Rialto. I think it's a good map.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you hear they're looking at it to
yeah,
change it though,
so
because yeah,
that
it's
first point.
something like a 42% win rate for attackers or something on the
Oh
first
yeah.
point. So they're gonna try to fix that. So yeah, I
Yep.
might even see some changes coming through.
Yep, they always want to make it even, about 50-50 for attackers and defenders, and it's pretty weighted well on the defenders. The defense spawn is just like a bit too close to that point, that they can get back and defend right under that bridge, which I think
Yeah.
is the big part of it. But there's also a lot of flanking routes for both defense and offense on that map. But overall, I do enjoy playing on Rialto a lot, despite the imbalanced play. I enjoy Rialto, and once those improvements come in, I'll enjoy it even more. And I enjoyed watching it this weekend as well. The other new thing, Hammond Wrecking Ball. He wasn't played that much. The Winston's Lab pick rate stats are officially up now. Um, And overall, in all teams, Hammond was played 5.26%. The team who played Hammond the most was South Korea at 20.84%. Almost every other team has him under 5% play, almost 1% play for the rest of the teams. South Korea was the main team playing Hammond. What do you think of his play so far? Where did you think he fit into the meta?
That was interesting. I hadn't seen those numbers, but one of the things that struck me about the way they were using him reminded me of when they introduced Brigitte to the Overwatch League, in the sense that there was lots of sort of initial picks and then counter picks and then swaps that came in pretty quickly because he does have some pretty strong counters, whether that's you're running the Sombra, which we haven't seen the Sombra that much, but in contenders they're playing some, especially in North America. We didn't see Sombra that much on the World Cup matches, but Sombra Pharah, this kind of uh, long range DPS is a pretty good counter to him, and so lots of times you'd see Hammond on a rollout, but then that would swap pretty quickly. He's also, I noticed, a favorite for some tank players trying to come in like in an overtime situation as well. Again, with a really good, nice rollout, you can get there pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's still definitely being felt out, just exactly where he fits in
Yeah,
um,
we'll see
with
where
some of these teams.
we'll see where he fits. But speaking of Sombra, I was surprised not to see that much Sombra because contenders had me convinced that Sombra was OP and a must pick, and then they come into South Korea and no one is picking Sombra. But yeah, Hammond, I agree with you a lot like Brigitte right now, and that just happens with like almost every hero that's released. I remember Ana. Nobody played Ana in competitive in the esports scene, even though she was super OP. And I guarantee she was super OP because no one played her on her first patch. Then she got nerfed, and everybody started playing her, which means that she must have been insane before people started playing her. So it just takes time for everyone to figure out like where Hammond is going to fit. Is he going to be a main tank? What is he best played with? And stuff like that. But I'm excited. I like Hammond as a hero because I like high skill heroes, and when it comes to competitive play mostly. But we should talk about production of the World Cup overall because there's some things people noticed about the production that it wasn't up to par with what Overwatch League gave us exactly. We had different casters, we had different graphics, and overall, in my opinion, it felt like a LAN that was still being done online for some reason. It felt like the casters weren't in the same room. It just felt overall like it was disconnected. It was disjointed for me. What were your thoughts on the production?
Yeah, it's one of those things, you would have thought that would have picked up something from the incredible success that was the Overwatch League, to try to include at least some of that in the World Cup broadcast, but there really wasn't that sort of thing. I mean, like if you notice, they like the Overwatch social media accounts like didn't even mention that the group stage had started until like the second day, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting how low priority that was. But yeah, just weird production things. Like if you again that Finland South Korea match on day one, where they got into the second half of Rialto, and the server crashed, and and they had to reset South Korea's attack, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, it's just stuff like that. We had the other thing I noticed was a really interesting focus of the production that it was. Obviously, this group stage was in South Korea, South Korean audience and all that. But at least if you watched the English stream, you wouldn't have known it because we had English casters, English, I guess, talent on the English speaking talent on the floor.
Yeah.
There wasn't an analyst desk, but But you wouldn't have even known that. Presumably, obviously there was a Korean stream, so there presumably were Korean casters and translators and that sort of thing. But you couldn't have told, you couldn't have been able to tell just from watching the thing live. And maybe they weren't there live.
Yeah, I don't know. And Golden Boy even having Ark translate himself, just things like that. And the Golden Boy and Malik's sort of things, the interviews felt super weird to me, and I don't know why. They were doing it in the middle of the games. They were interviewing players in the middle of the games, which was weird to me. Like at halftime. But now that you mentioned analysis desk, it may be that there was just no analysis desk, and that just threw me for a loop because I don't know, it truly felt to me like the casters were not there in the actual building for some reason.
Yeah, and nothing to anchor them.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's because I've been watching Contenders NA where it's all online. But yeah, as far as the casting goes, though, I have no complaints with the casting personally. This is the first time Houston Outlaws player Jake stepped up to the plate and casted with ZP. That was the best casting duo by far, in my opinion. Jake brings that player analysis and his amazing speaking abilities to the Overwatch casting scene. And I thought he was really good at it. I can't complain about Wolf and Achilleos. I thought they're great contenders. Korea, I think they're great here. I think they're Overwatch League talent if they weren't so key to being in the Korean scene because they can translate English to Korean for those English viewers. They're very key for the scene over there. And then we had Leg Day and
Jaws.
Jaws, and I think they were pretty good too. So I can't complain about the casting too much, especially Jake's first time out.
Yeah, for not seeing the Overwatch League talent, it's good. It's almost, the World Cup is sort of a combination of this Overwatch League and contenders and all these sort of things, and to have the production like that too, it's sort of a bigger exposure for some of these contenders casters is really cool. Uh, and as we continue to expand, maybe they'll be expanding the talent pool. I don't know.
Yeah, I guarantee they will be expanding that talent pool with more games. More means more casters.
That's
But
true.
yeah, and I agree. They're just mixing contenders and Overwatch League talent at this point. They need those contenders talent. They know more about the contenders players, and the Overwatch World Cup has tons of contenders players in it, especially for the group stage. I expect these are the group stages. I expect BlizzCon to have almost everyone from the Overwatch League production back, casters, analysts. I expect it to be mainly Overwatch League people. Um, and that makes sense. I think they're on a well-deserved break right now. Overwatch League just ended. I think everyone's taking a nice little vacation when it comes to production, talent, stuff like that. I know Nate Nancer, all those people, all the higher ups are back to work for sure. But yeah, all those people are taking a nice little break. They'll have a fun little all-star game here coming up, which is a great transition because that's what we're talking about next.
We're on a
So
roll here. It's great.
great transitions. All right, so All Star Weekend is this weekend, August 25th and 26th. On the 25th, we have exhibition matches. The schedule just came out yesterday. At 4, or this is Pacific time. At 4 is Lucio Ball's Showdown. 5 is Mystery Heroes. 6 is the quarterfinals and semifinals of the Widowmaker 1v1s. 7:30 is the Talent Takedown. 8:30 is the Lockout Elimination. 9:30 is the finals of that Widowmaker 1v1. And then the next day on the 26th at 11 a.m. Pacific, it is the actual All-Star game. Let's start with the exhibition matches. Which exhibition match are you most looking forward to?
Wait. Out of the five we're listed here, I've got to be looking forward to Mystery Heroes.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that game mode. But also, I'll be really interested to see the way. Number one, who from the Pacific and Atlantic teams are going to be playing in this in that particular mode, but also just the way that it ends up going. Like for example, we'll probably see Symmetra, for example, which we haven't. we haven't at all this season. But just to see, does one team happen to spawn with a decent composition and just wreck face, or what kind of improv strategies they're going to be able to come up with in the moment. It's really going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, and we'll be predicting a little after I say my favorite event is personally the Widowmaker 1v1 coming from a sports fan. You have all these All-Star weekends going on. The MLB, the baseball league here in America, does a home run derby, and they have recently changed it to a 1v1 bracket of these players seeing who can hit the most home runs. And I think that they took a page out of MLB's book for this one. I'm most looking forward to Widowmaker 1v1. Widowmakers are one of the most exciting parts of Overwatch League in general. Seeing those big headshots, and they've chosen the 8 players, and we've got 8 good players here, and I'm excited to see who wins this bracket. But we'll get more into our predictions on that stuff later. Let's start with our predictions for the first event, Lucio Ball Showdown. Joe, you're the pro Lucio Ball player here, so I think you should take this prediction over.
You keep saying that. I'm not really sure what to think. I mean,
And while this All-Star game's going to be going on, you've got your own Lucio Ball event to attend. So
it's true for Butler. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, this weekend. But yeah, I think if I had to guess, I'd probably give a slight advantage to the Pacific team. Because of again, just because of some of the roster they've got, right? It's particularly Big Goose, known for really nice Lucio on the Gladiators. But just in general, I mean, you've got several people on here. Sleepy's also there. Whether they actually put in Lucio players or something else, who knows for sure.
we have no clue what's going to happen. But I look at this list and I only see Big Goose pretty much. That's a Lucio player out of all these All Stars. They're mostly
on both sides. Yeah,
most of the supports are Zenyatta supports and not or either Zenyatta or Mercy, and because Lucio's just wasn't played that much in the Overwatch League.
More niche, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if they put. I don't think they have. I don't think either team has enough Lucio players to do all 3 Lucios. So it's going to be interesting to see if they put in their supports or if they put in their damage dealers, or if they're just like Lucio Ball specialists on each team that just love playing Lucio Ball all the time. I personally don't like Lucio Ball that much. It's as a Rocket League player, it's just a slower version of Rocket League. But it'll be interesting to watch because I want to know who these teams are going to put in. Move on to Mystery Heroes, your favorite event. This one's also hard to predict because there's a part there. It's part luck. You can get really good heroes. One team could just magically get dive somehow, and and that would be crazy. But I personally think if there is a skill, it is the most flexible players. Which side do you think has the more flexible players, Atlantic, Pacific?
Normally I would have said, Pacific, and I'd point out players like Seagull. But of course, now he's announced his retirement. Won't be playing in All Stars, and won't be playing in Overwatch League Season 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to see the types of players they might field though. I mean, like for Pacific, Jae Hong might come out either on support or tank. Who knows?
Yeah.
We might see somebody like Mickey. He's been really nice on the Brigida, but also known for his diva before Seagull sort of picked that up for Dallas Fuel. And on the other side, you've got people like Poco, really good diva, really good Zarya. Flex DPS almost if necessary. And then of course Pine. You can't say much about Pine that it hasn't already been said. But I don't know. It's gonna be close for sure.
Yeah, it definitely will. When I think of flexibility, I definitely think Surefour. I think Surefour has been throughout Overwatch history has played so many different heroes and has mastered so many different heroes as his team has needed him to. Here in the Overwatch League, he's had to transition into a Widowmaker player, which is something he didn't really do before. So I think he's just been all over the place. I think Surefour is definitely going to be in for the Pacific Division. But there are a lot of specialists in the Overwatch League, so this one should also be interesting to watch. Widowmaker 1v1. We have the official matchups here. So the Atlantic and Pacific both chose 4 players. They get put into a bracket, and then the winners move on. Obviously, it's a 8 player bracket. I'll read off the matchups right now. Over from the Atlantic, we have Saya player versus Carpe, Pine versus Striker. The Pacific, Architect versus Soon, and Fleta versus Surefour. Let's just go through this. Let's go through this. Let's choose an obvious winner and then maybe a sleeper winner that we have, someone who could come out and surprise us all.
So yeah, out of the 8 total, I mean, I'm biased because I've been a fan of the Fusion all the way since the preseason, which they weren't there for.
Of course.
But I've just decided that's where I was going. But no, I mean, I've got to give it to Carpe, just because he's Carpe. If he can turn up for this, then he'll do really well, I'm sure. But yeah, if it wasn't Carpe, I mean, the obvious choice is Pine, but we're not. If we're going sleeper, who's Surefour playing?
Fleta.
Fleta. Maybe either Surefour or Soon, probably. Might be my second guess.
Honestly, you could pick anyone from the Pacific and they would be a sleeper. I feel like all 4 of these players are definitely sleeper picks. They're definitely not considered the best Widowmakers. I know Fleta was at the beginning of the season, but he kind of, once Seoul took a dip, he kind of wasn't in the spotlight as much anymore. But over on the Atlantic side, they've got some very good snipers over there. I agree with you. I think Carpe is going in as the favorite. But I personally think Architect could come out of nowhere and surprise some people. I think he was the San Francisco Shock's best player. I think he was very underrated. I definitely think he's a sleeper in this Widow 1v1. But Psy player versus Carpe is like the finals in the first round, so that kind of sucks. But yeah, I'm super excited for this.
And of course, you got to think that this 1v1, right, is just going to be purely mechanical Widowmaker skill, like you mentioned. Fleta might have gone down with his team, but while you're not relying on a Winston to create space for you, and it's just a matter of clicking on their head's forehead, I mean, it's
true. Forehead.
But you'd be interested to see what happens.
But yeah, no other players on this battlefield, so it's just pure mechanical skill. I'm excited for this one. And then something else we haven't talked about yet, but everyone's getting super hyped for the talent takedown because of the amount of trash talk that there has been. Bren coming out on Twitter, of course, trash talking Monty, trash talking pretty much the entire other side. It's been crazy. It's basically, do you have the teams pulled up?
I'm getting them here. Yeah.
All right, cool. But yeah, Bren has been saying that he respects Reinforce, but the entire other team he has no respect for. And Monty responded with some nice jabs. Last night, Hex on his Twitch stream, he was practicing with Monty and Zoe, and he had some words for Bren as well. So Bren talks big, everyone talks big back. It's been a lot of trash talk so far, and I'm excited to see who wins this.
Yeah, we've got 2 teams of 7, right? The Atlantic Division, Malik, Sideshow, Golden Boy, Mr. X, Doa, Uber, and Bren. The Pacific Division is Reinforce, Crumbs, Zoe, Semler, Monty, Puckett, and Hex.
Yeah, it's overall, if you take a look at their SR and stuff like that, the Pacific has Reinforce, who is, of course, still a pro player. He's on the Swedish Overwatch World Cup team. He's a Grandmaster player, and the rest of his team is about golds, whereas over on the Atlantic, you got some high platinum, low diamond players, pretty much. But you got the infamous Berenji. He plays Genji, Widowmaker, and some Torbjorn. And then you got Sideshow, who's the flank Yada. Basically, these players over on Atlantic are known for being trash talking selfish players. So we'll see. We'll see if they can come together and make a nice team. But Reinforce is going to have to carry big here. And the other cool thing about this match is players are going to help cast the match. We could see Jake. We could see some fun players casting this match and trashing these casters. Who else do you think we could see?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that earlier as it really depends on, what kind of angle they want to go. Again, this might be an answer I would have given Siegel if he was there because I know he's really good at that stuff.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, rip the bird. Somebody like Surefour maybe
Yeah.
be pretty good at that. These types of players that have clearly have lots of head knowledge as well.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think. Who was it like from LA Valiant or something? Who?
Custa.
Okay,
Thinking Custa.
that's not who I was thinking of. But yeah, but yes, Custa would also be a good choice.
Okay. Nice. Helps you out there.
Yeah, there you go.
I think Mickey would be a good choice too. Mickey's just fun overall. Um, but yeah, I think the Shock have some funny. Sinatra would be funny, even though he's not. There are a bunch of people that aren't on the teams that would be funny to see. But yeah, I think I think almost everyone is looking forward to the talent takedown because of this trash talk, pretty much. Then we have lockout elimination. We've never seen anything like lockout elimination before. Basically, if you die, you're dead for good. You don't respawn. The first team to win 3 rounds, and you were telling me that if you win a round, the heroes you used to win that round, you cannot use anymore, correct?
Yeah, that's where the lockout part comes in. So in order for it's a first to 3 rounds. So in order for the team to win, they will have had to use 18 different heroes.
So much like Mystery Heroes, you're going to want to put in your most flexible players, basically.
Yeah.
Um, so that one should be interesting too. I don't know what exactly to expect for that, but it should be fun. And then you have the finals of the Widowmaker 1v1 finishing off the day. And then the next day is the All-Star game. I was saying before that I enjoy like these skill challenges and exhibition matches more than the All-Star game usually when it comes to sports, actual sports, traditional sports, I guess. And the All-Star game is I don't know. It's usually just when it's an NBA, it's just the players not really trying. MLB is just it's just weird. Even in this Overwatch league, all 18 players on these teams must play. I feel like it's weird when you just have to switch out the players a bunch and all this stuff. It feels weird to me, but it could be fun. We'll see if the players bring out some fun strategies.
Yeah, hopefully they take this opportunity to do that. Yeah, but it's not played off too seriously.
Yeah, exactly. We could see Symmetra. I was saying we should rename it to Symmetra Weekend instead of All Star Weekend.
Yeah.
I think we didn't see Symmetra at all in the Overwatch League. It's time to see her. All right, all weekend.
Why not?
Replace
Yeah.
Widowmaker 1v1 with Symmetra 1v1, please.
Yeah, I was mentioned, Muma's playing on the Atlantic roster, so I think he has the most Symmetra playtime in the Overwatch League right now. So
Do
that's
it,
something.
Muma. Do it. He's definitely going to do it. Besides the events, of course, we had the skins. We could talk about the skins, the Tracer skin, the Genji skin. They were going to cost 300 owl credits. They are now 200 owl credits. They're on sale now. They're $10 each for these skins, $20 total. There was a bit of sort of people were upset when they cost 300 owls credits. They're still upset that they cost 200 owl credits. $10 each for a skin. These people must have not played Fortnite before, where every skin is $20. Um, but that's just how teams make money now. What do you think about the skins?
Yeah, I like him. I got him. It's interesting. Just like super highly detailed. Obviously legendary skins. If you haven't seen pictures of him, you should go look him up. Genji is all fiery, and Tracer has some sort of water design. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but there's a slightly modified sound effect on Tracer. I forget if it's the pulse bomb or recoil sound effect or something, but it sounds like a wave, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
I haven't noticed any on the Gidgee skin though. But yeah, they're cool. Like I said, I got them.
yeah. I probably am not going to get them, but I do think they're cool. I think people are are overreacting. Not only are they like, this costs too much money, they're like, these skins are terrible. And I'm like, well, they're not terrible. They're not horrible. They're not. Some people are calling them the worst tracer skins in the game. And I'm like, no, it's definitely not the
Yeah,
worst
it's-
tracer skin in the game.
yeah, Tracer has some bad skins too.
Yeah. um, I don't know. It's weird to call it the worst skin in the game because I think they're pretty cool. And I like Genji's better because he's just flame. I like his sword a lot, and his head is just on fire, and I think that's sweet. But I'm interested to see like for their in-game jerseys, is every character gonna have these Atlantic and Pacific skin type things? Like, what are they gonna do?
Ooh, that'd
I'm
be cool. I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe they'll just do recolors with like the maroon and turquoise
Yeah,
or whatever.
that's probably what they're gonna do. Um, but it would be super cool if they were all just wearing like these insanely cool skins. Um, Besides that, jerseys came out last night. You can buy Atlantic and Pacific jerseys. These ones, I think they're very cool jerseys. Actually, I don't know if I'm gonna get one, but you can get any of the All Stars names on the back, and or you can customize it for more money. Put whatever name you want on the back with numbers. You cannot actually put Seagull or who's the other put Bird Ring's the one
Bird
who
ring.
both the birds.
Those are banned from the.
Yeah, you actually cannot put Seagull or Bird Ring on the back of your jersey.
Huh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. Of course, Seagull can't attend as we've mentioned, but Bird Ring also his hand injury in the middle-ish of the season. He's just taking more time to get over that because he played a bit too much without getting over that. So he's not playing that weekend either. One more thing I wanted to we're about to this is a nice I got to transition once again into the next topic. Um, I'm on the Overwatch League website and they've already changed Fissure, who's no longer a Los Angeles
Oh yeah,
Gladiator. He is a Seoul Dynasty man. They got rid of his picture and changed him to a Seoul Dynasty player, which is interesting that he won't be at the All Star game as an LA Gladiator player, even though
that's true.
he played almost the entire season on the Gladiators. He's going to be representing Seoul, it seems, at this event, which would be interesting. I wonder what they would do if he had been transferred not to Seoul, but somebody in the Atlantic.
Yeah, I don't know.
um,
It's interesting. But
yeah,
I mean, they've made roster changes already. Maybe they just take them off, bump somebody up.
yeah. But
I
let's
don't
get
know.
more into Fissure to Seoul. How about that? Yesterday,
Yeah.
we had our first free agent pickup of or trade, I guess, if you could call it. It's a transfer. It's a lot like soccer, and that most there's no trades really in soccer. You just trade money for a player. So it's an undisclosed amount of money, and in professional sports, which I hope Overwatch gets to eventually, you have to disclose the amount of money you gave up for this player, but you don't have to do that yet. So we don't know how much money LA Gladiators have received for Fissure. But Fissure was sent on over to Seoul Dynasty, which was a surprise to nobody.
Yeah. As much as Fissure might have argued otherwise.
Yeah, every single time Fissure came onto the subreddit and said, I love my team. I would never leave them." And Slasher is lying. Slasher is not telling the truth. I would never. I don't want this. He Fissure tried his
Slash
Fissure tried his hardest to do damage control, and now this
Sla
comes out.
Slasher tweets last night, I have 200 IQ. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I did not. Yeah, Slasher is the leak master. There's no doubt about that. But Fissure tried his hardest. Didn't work out. What do you think? Is this? Do you think Soul's going to improve a lot from this?
I think certainly the mechanical skill is there, right? It's interesting though to think about the way Fissure fit in with the Gladiators there at the end. I mean, like he wasn't played in the playoffs. There were rumors of, oh, he's being um, obstinate. He's not showing up, whatever. Um, Partly because he wanted to play on a Korean roster, which fine, whatever. I guess he's got his wish, but hopefully. Uh, Hopefully he'd be able to settle in nicely over there. Yeah, presumably, assuming that happens, that he ought to do pretty well over there. I think. I
Yeah,
mean, we've seen how good he is at his position. So,
yeah.
uh,
I think he's definitely one of the best tanks in the league, if not the best. And um, it just makes me wonder why London didn't start him and how he fits overall into a full Korean roster. Maybe perhaps London actually didn't know his full potential and full talent, but that just doesn't make sense to me because people like Monty Doa, had who had come from the Korean scene, knew that Fissure was one of the best Korean players. So obviously, I feel like London would know that too.
you would
Um,
think.
yeah, so it makes me think with these issues with the Gladiators at the end, maybe he had issues with London as well. But looking at it on paper, without thinking about Fisher's personality issues or whatever happened with the Gladiators there at the end, he will improve Seoul by so much,
Yeah,
a
I
lot.
mean, we saw what he did with the Gladiators too. Took him from what, like
Yeah,
eighth or something to first by stage four.
exactly, and that's with like a language barrier, and he basically just carried this entire team. If and you have the Seoul Dynasty who's in need of a tank, and I know Miro. Everyone loves Miro, but he hasn't performed. He had one, in my opinion. Miro had one really good performance, and that was the Overwatch World Cup, and everyone like thought he was amazing after that. But he's pretty overrated in my opinion. So I think Fissure's a great addition for Seoul, and on paper will probably bring Seoul to the playoffs next year. If things don't work out, of course, one of the top comments on the Reddit thread yesterday was the only question is how can Seoul mess this up? Because
We'll put him on support, obviously.
yeah, of course. And overall, what do you think about the Gladiators? Was this a good choice? Did they have to do it? Like, how's their team looking next year overall without him too?
Well, I mean, who knows how much preparation they had put into this going into the playoffs, but I mean, they certainly held their own. I thought against, well, it must have been against London in the
Yeah,
quarterfinals,
yeah. Was it,
yeah, of the Overwatch League.
or was it
Uh,
against London? Was it? No, because they're in different
or no, no,
divisions.
no, they played LA Valiant first.
Yeah.
No?
No,
Yes.
no, they
But
didn't.
no, it was against London because then London beat Gladiators and
Oh yeah,
Valiant.
I'm
Yeah.
an idiot. I'm thinking that Pacific and Atlantic have to face different. All right, yeah, go,
It was a
go.
long time ago. But yeah, no. To watch that series, I remix and Void, uh, less than orthodox tank lineup, but they seem to be doing okay. The Bishu I know is put some work in at the beginning of the season. Yeah, so maybe they pick up somebody to replace him, but they probably don't even necessarily have to. I'm not familiar with Gladiator's Legion. Maybe there's a
I
really nice
know,
main tank down there. I don't know.
I know. Gods is on Gladiators Legion. I've always liked God's ability to flex onto different heroes. But he originally is a tank slash, or no, he originally was a DPS. He's moved to tank slash
Uh,
flex. Um, so I like Gods a lot, but I don't know if he's Overwatch League worthy quite yet. So they might just have to pick up somebody else, another free agent. Um, we'll see though. Overall, there's nothing, there's nothing Gladiators can do in this situation, but sort of give up Fissure for money. Like
yeah.
he's either going to be sitting on their bench complaining the whole time, or they're not going to be able to play him because Fissure clearly didn't want to be there anymore. So
Yeah.
might as well just give him up at that point. And he's probably one of the most expensive players in this league. So they probably got a good amount of money for him, and now they can use that money to maybe pick up a main tank that won't do this to them. But yeah, overall, I'm excited. Free agency officially started. Now we got It officially started a while ago, but this is the official first move. And now hopefully that opens the floodgates and we get a bunch of moves.
Yeah.
Um, Teams. We can talk Overwatch League. We have no other free agency things to talk about, but we can talk about expansion teams because rumored to move from 12 teams overall to 18, so adding 6 teams. So far, Overwatch League themselves have confirmed 2 teams, Atlanta and Guangzhou. Atlanta is in Georgia in the USA. Guangzhou is in China in Asia. And we have a bunch of rumored teams. They're not officially announced yet. Way back around the Overwatch League finals, Paris was rumored by ESPN. Toronto was recently rumored by Over.gg. And then we have a Melbourne rumor, but that is for season 3, not this season. Other names been thrown out there by not necessarily confirmed sources quite yet are Berlin and Busan. Those are sort of the top runners. Besides that, do you think if we have Atlanta Guangzhou, if we get Paris Toronto, and if we get Berlin Busan, do you think that's a good 6 to add? Anyone you're sad that's missing out on this round?
Yeah, I guess, and we just mentioned Melbourne possibly for season 3, but just trying to think about unrepresented regions right now. Paris, Berlin, and London. Those are your EU teams. If you wanted to add another one there, you could probably do something in Russia. We've seen you got a really nice core even from the Russian World Cup team, perhaps. Um, put something in Russia maybe to fill that out. But like unrepresented regions, possibly something in Australia, which again we're looking at potentially in the future already. But or South America. Apparently, like Brazil and that area has a pretty decent competitive community that you don't hear much about. Um,
Yeah, Brazil gaming houses. They show up to the World Cup every once in a while. They've got a pretty good scene down in Brazil. So Brazil could be eventually a team.
yeah. If we were gonna do another American team, obviously, from sitting here in the Midwest, something like Chicago would be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Just because of the location. Um, Obviously, we heard that rumor of Toronto. We know Toronto esports already a really great contenders team, uh, but they feed Boston Uprising? Question mark. I think they're a feeder team for somebody in the Overwatch League.
I don't know. I'm not
I
sure.
don't know. Um, at any
Possibly.
rate, but we know a really good contenders team. So to put a new Overwatch League team there in Toronto definitely would be out of the question.
Yeah. Almost every city rumor we've gotten that's like published is has turned out to be true almost. The only reason I would maybe question the Toronto rumor is it wasn't broken by ESPN and Jacob Wolf, but rather over.gg. But I don't know. I Toronto is a good choice, I guess, but I did want that Chicago pretty badly, being from the Midwest.
It is the Boston Uprising, actually.
Okay,
So that might be a reason not to have a Toronto out team if they have already got a really nice feeder into Boston.
yeah, that makes
Uh,
sense since
but we'll see.
Huck owned Toronto Esport or was a part of Toronto Esports. That makes total sense why they're the feeder team. Um, yeah, color schemes. We got Atlanta and Guangzhou confirmed. So let's make some color schemes for these teams. That's the best part of this. I'm obsessed with color schemes. I'm obsessed with logos. I don't know what it is about me, but that's just like my favorite part of the Overwatch League. I was loving it last year when they were just like, here's this team, here's this team. Atlanta, Guangzhou. What do you go with?
Well, we talked about this earlier. I was kind of thinking, Atlanta kind of has to do something with like a peach type color. You know what I mean? Because we're in
Yeah,
Georgia, right? So southern
peach.
United States. Might be a little a little out of character, but put like a peach and a light green or something like
Yeah,
that.
that would be
Uh,
interesting. I've never seen like a peach colored team, really, but I'd be interesting if they did that. Atlanta, when it comes to pro teams, they all their pro teams pretty much have red in them. The Atlanta Hawks, the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Braves, they all got some red in there. Even their college team, the Georgia Bulldogs, they're red and black. So a lot of people, I feel like when they're making concepts, make them red and black. But I honestly think Guangzhou is going to find a way to be red because over there in China, I took Chinese for 7 years. I've been to China. They love the color red. It's their lucky color. If they're not red, then I feel like Chinese people will be upset that they're not red. That's how much they love the color red, and they'll honestly think it's bad luck. So I think Guangzhou probably going to be red. Atlanta, I have no clue what they're going to be. The Atlanta teams also love blue. The Hawks and the Braves both have blue as red. They're red and blue, so it possibly could be blue. But we have so many blue teams at this point.
yeah.
So honestly, who knows? I do want to see like a green and I guess we have like the neon green and black team. I want to see like a dark green and black or something, or dark green and white.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know what
This is,
other.
so somebody on Reddit, can't take credit for my idea, but suggested that we bring in a team that's like maroon and silver, which would be really cool.
Ooh,
Uh, just
yeah.
for something different.
I do. I want more red for sure. The red we've had so far is red and yellow, which is terrible. That's the worst combination
Yeah.
by far. It's better with Shanghai when yellow is the accent. It's still not the best in my opinion, but it's absolutely trash with the Florida Mayhem. When you have yellow as your primary color and red as your secondary, like oh my god, that is just so ugly to look at. And I'm glad that they're considering changing to the classic Miami like pink turquoise-ish like neon color because and they better do it because I absolutely despise the yellow red. I cannot think of like I can't think of a professional sports team or any brand besides like McDonald's obviously. Any like sports brand that has ever been yellow as their like first color and then red as their secondary because that just I don't know. That's just ugly. It just is. All right. Well, now that we're getting over colors, we'll finish it off with something called Visor that was released in beta this week. It's just a little overlay on Overwatch that gives you information like, hey, you've had your ultimate for a very long time. Maybe you should use it. It gives you stats after the game. It basically just reads your screen, sort of takes videos your screen and like figures out stats and whatnot. But the most controversial feature is that it uses the kill feed to basically predict when your opponents have their ultimate abilities, which people have been upset saying that gets rid of the skill of having good game sense because this thing is just going to tell you when the other team has their ultimates instead of you having to mentally track them while playing. Do you think Visor is cheating?
Do I? It, it, it's one of the things, it's really complicated. I kind of subscribe to the school of thought expressed among other people by Jane, the coach for Team Canada in the World Cup, also now newly hired assistant coach for Dallas Fuel, which by the way, that'll be cool. We can talk about that some other time. Um, but one of the things he said was that there's sort of two possible outcomes if you're using Visor for your games. Number one is that if the program can ult track correctly and consistently, and you start to rely on it and lose the skill yourself, or don't develop the skill yourself, and so then you're under skilled as a player, or the Visor program itself isn't effective and doesn't ult track accurately and that sort of thing. In which case you're just giving yourself a handicap if you do rely on it. Um, yeah, it's one of the things you can compare. There are several other like analysis program services, however you want to call it, um, that will that will give you something to look at, after your game's over. They take some of the data that's made available just through Overwatch on the internet, but to analyze some of your stats and that sort of thing. This is the difference between that is that this is happening, in the middle of a game. I think their website describes it, oh, it's nothing different than like if you have a friend looking over your shoulder while you're trying to play. I don't know.
It is a little different because there's no way you have a friend that is
just
the
that good at ult tracking.
has the brain of a computer.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Would I use it? Probably not, I guess is the short
Yeah.
version.
Um, yeah. Coming from Hearthstone, I played Hearthstone. They have a bunch of overlays in game. There's nothing Blizzard can do to shut down these overlays because they're just overlays. And for Hearthstone, they have a full deck tracker. In game, you cannot possibly see like what cards are left in your deck, but with a deck tracker, you can, and that is allowed, and it's not cheating because technically you can do that with a pen and paper. Um, and in it's like needed almost in Hearthstone at this point. I try playing without it, and I mean, I don't even try. Sometimes I accidentally play without it, and I'm just at a huge disadvantage because I'm just like, what cards do I have left in my deck, and all this stuff, and it really helps to play around what cards you have left, I guess. But in my opinion, if you are using Visor on climbing the ranks of Overwatch, and you eventually get good enough to make the Overwatch League or contenders on LAN, any LAN event, Blizzard is not going to let you use Visor on their computers.
Definitely not.
So if you come up the ranks depending on Visor, using Visor as your game sense, and all of a sudden you can't use Visor anymore because you're at an official Blizzard sanctioned event on LAN where their computers don't have Visor, you're just going to be worse than everybody else because you don't have high enough game sense. So if you actually want to become a pro in Overwatch, you're definitely not going to want to use Visor. You're going to want to learn how to do it yourself because once you get high enough in the ranks, you're just not going to be allowed to use it anymore. So yeah, overall, any more thoughts on Visor?
I don't think I have anything. No.
No, yeah. Overall, I know it was a big deal this week, but I don't think it's a big deal in the long run whatsoever because people who do use it will end up just like hurting themselves in the end. So it's not something Blizzard can do anything about because it just doesn't matter that much. Um, yeah, that's all we got for the first episode of On the Flank. I enjoyed it a lot, and I can't wait to do this every week with you, Joe.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Oh yeah, once things start picking up, especially with this free agency, I'm excited. But yeah, to close out, I guess we'll promote some social media. You can find us individually on Twitter. I'm at JWGeorgeIV. Joe is at Kirkpatrick _ Inc. INC. And our show is on Twitter as well, at On The Flank Show. You can also email us ontheflankshow@gmail.com. You can submit topics, you can ask questions, and we will answer it right here on this show. Of course, you can find our podcast on ontheflank.podbean.com. It's also going to be on my YouTube, which is John George. We'll most likely tweet out the YouTube links. It'll be on iTunes, and eventually, once we get to 5 episodes, it'll be on Spotify, because Spotify requires us to have 5 episodes. That's all the plugging I got to do. Any more plugs you got, Joe?
I don't think so. That all sounds good to me.
Awesome.
Go watch the All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, and go watch Joe play Lucio Ball on the Tespa Twitch page. Is that this Saturday?
Yeah, this Saturday, and if we do well enough, it'll be on Sunday too. But
Go Dogs.
there we go.
Yeah, yeah, that's it for our first episode. Thank you guys for listening.
And we'll see you later.
Yeah.
Catchphrase!